at the week. In October of last 2022, 21. Assisted on the League of Women Voters report by the Downers Grove, Lisle, and Woodridge chapter for the Mental Health Board. I circulated petitions and in Lisle and Lisle Township and educated voters. Some of the volunteer work I've done has been tutoring math, chemistry, and physics at Oakton Community College. Again, that's more north suburbs. I was a youth advocate at the Bridge Youth and Family Services in Palatine. And I've also been a read to learn tutor. So I have a tremendous passion for community service and also mental health services and plenty of project management skills. Thank you.
Thank you, Drew. Any other public comments? Sandra.
I would like to say something. Sandy, go ahead. Go ahead. You sure? So I just wanted to briefly say, most of you won't understand this because you weren't in the room at the last meeting, but last time I was here, as a taxpayer in Lisle Township and someone who pays very close attention to politics, my name is Holly Koopman. I am extremely disappointed in the process for electing a new trustee. No offense to the new trustee who's sitting here today, Mr. Robinson, but there was zero transparency. There was zero announcement to the community. It wasn't made clear. You know, it was said that it was made very clear to the Democratic Party. That's not true. Not true. It was not made clear. I would have loved the opportunity to perhaps put my name in the hat, my hat in the ring for the race. I know for a fact that every single board member there, with the exception of one, did not have every resume in front of them. Claire Goldenberg's resume was not forwarded to this board. And I'd like to know why. You got to see her resume that night. You went into 2 hours of closed session, which was not transparent. There was absolutely nothing transparent about this process. It was embarrassing. When you think about it, it's embarrassing. It's a process. We are voters. We vote and we elect you on this board to represent us. And when someone steps down, there's an expectation of transparency. And there was zero transparency in this process. So if there is no written process for how you put people on this board and override the voters, then there should be. Because I know for a fact that someone who was on the ballot, who lost by 17 votes, her resume was not even submitted. So for someone to say that they support her and that they supported her, that is simply not true. There are people on this board right now who would not be here but for Claire Goldenberg's help. She was recommended by multiple Democrats to be appointed to this board. And every single member of this board should be ashamed about the fact that you waited till the late hour at the last minute and then had to go into closed session because none of the board members had the resumes, hadn't interviewed the candidates. So we either take this process seriously and we do it in a transparent, professional manner, or we just agree that it's just going to look irresponsible and it's just going to, this is how the business is going to be.
30 seconds left.
It's up to you, but you should be embarrassed.
Anyone else have any public comment? Sandra?
Thanks, Diane.
Not me. Hi, I'm Sandra Pattison. I'm a resident of Lisle Township. In the December 14th Lisle Township meeting last month, Claire Goldenberg made a public comment at 2:35 in part 1 recording posted online. People of Lisle Township and DuPage are not ready to elevate a Jewish lesbian to an elected position. Even the leadership of this board, who I was instrumental in electing, has demonstrated her own bias. So that was a direct quote from that 2.35. You can go back and look now that it's online. Claire later heard that the main reason many of you refused to acknowledge her application was because she called you anti-Semites. Clearly, she did not. It's on the tape. Please note that Claire's comments were directed at the results of the campaign she had run in Lisle and DuPage. The bias that the leadership was unspecified, but shown by Diane Hewitt, Supervisor Diane Hewitt, that she's referring to, who she was instrumental in helping to elect. Diane demonstrated this bias in the meeting that followed. Diane refused to accept Claire's application because she has power issues. That is why she would not put Claire Goldenberg's application forward for a vote. I don't know what was said in your closed door discussion, private discussion and off the record, but that is the real truth.
30 seconds.
Delaying the meeting for hours because Madam Supervisor was manipulating you all privately is very undemocratic and against the principles of open meeting laws. The very vote where she refused to put Claire's name on the ballot was the most outrageous demonstration of her autocracy that I have ever seen from Diane to this point. As a reminder, you voted up or down for Barry and not even putting Claire on the ballot. Wow. I urge you to always use the normal voting method of putting all applicants on a ballot and picking them. I asked the Lisle Township Democrat executives to review this for sanctions against Diane Hewitt, and they said it was more appropriate to bring in this behavior to the board and to the public.
Your time's up, ma'am.
So I suggest you keep a close eye on this wannabe despot, because if she would stab close friends in the back, think of what she would do for you.
Excuse me.
Regarding the way you all acted at the mere mention of anti-Semitism.
Is there some
this is called
order in this meeting?
Bigotry denial syndrome. I strongly suggest diversity training that employees in Illinois are all required to study annually.
Ma'am, you've exceeded the 3 minutes.
Take action because silence is compliance. Hate is divisive. When leaders step forward and act swiftly in the wake of a hate incident,
ma'am, you're out of order.
Supported. Community members feel safe and space for action and dialogue grow. I urge all of you to take action for human rights in this community.
All right.
I yield the floor.
Any other public comments? Chris, Lattia.
Thank you. My name is Christopher Radio, resident of Lisle Township. I don't know what any of that was about. I'll be the first to admit that I'm new to these meetings. I came here tonight to discuss business, government, hoping to establish the mental health board. I'm not sure what to do. I would hope that that's what we're here to talk about. I've got kids waiting at home. Hope that we can focus on business and
okay. Just a reminder to everyone, there's a 3-minute limit on public comment. So you have 3 minutes to speak. The board is not required to respond. Are you ready? Claire.
My name is Claire Goldenberg. I'm a resident of Lisle Township. Okay, so the tax levy for both the General Assistance Fund and the Road District Fund were approved at the 11th hour at the 9 a.m. December 27th meeting, just in time in order to get the documents to the county clerk in time for their deadline. However, because of the disorganization and rush to get this completed in time, the documentation was completed incorrectly and none of the board members had the time to review, or they approved this documentation without reading it. The document was less than 200 words. And now you have all put the township at risk of not receiving any of the taxes that were in that tax levy document. And instead, all of these taxes could go to another community. Well done.
Anyone else?
Itasca. Well done, Itasca. Ding, 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 ding. $2,335,000.
Any other public comment?
Well, that's what's happening with the public health.
I have public comment as well.
Didn't do the paperwork right.
Okay, everybody, let's keep to our own comments.
So I have public comment as well as a taxpayer and a resident. And I wrote it down. So each month duties have been taken away from the clerk and others, concentrating those duties to only 2 people in the township, the supervisor and the office manager. This new practice removes the extra eyes or questions from what is being done. Tonight, we will see more duties being reallocated to them. As an elected official, I'm concerned. As a taxpayer, I'm disturbed. I'm asking this board to vote down any resolutions enabling only 2 people and a reduction of the eyes on all our business. Thank you.
Any other public comments? Hearing none. Moving on to the 4th agenda item, which is the review and approval of the minutes. So the first one to be put up is the budget presentation for the first piece on December 14th.
I have a small amendment to that. Clerk Pellet was on 2nd page under number 10, executive session. Regular board meeting was called back to order at 11 a.m. Should be 11 p.m. Yeah. And I knew that. And that was the only change.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve accepting it. Just wait.
You can do it. Okay, thank you, Trustee Page, and thank you, Trustee Geis. Any more discussion about the 12-14 minutes? Okay, and then a roll call vote.
Trustee Geis?
Yes.
Trustee McGovern?
Yes.
Trustee Page?
Yes.
Trustee Robinson?
Yes.
Supervisor Hewitt?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, the next, they were passed. The next minutes are the committee of the whole minutes for December 14th. And anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Trustee Page.
I will second.
Thank you, Trustee McGovern. Any discussion? And a roll call vote.
Trustee Geis?
Yes.
Trustee McGovern?
Yes.
Trustee Page?
Yes.
Trustee Robinson?
Yes.
Supervisor Hewitt?
Yes. They're approved. Next is the December 27th minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Trustee Page.
Second.
Thank you, Trustee Robinson. Any discussion?
Never mind.
Okay, then a roll call vote.
Trustee Geis?
Yes.
Trustee McGovern?
Yes.
Trustee Page?
Yes.
Trustee Robinson?
Yes.
Supervisor Hewitt?
Yes. Okay, the last minutes were the January 4th.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Trustee Page.
I will second.
Thank you, Trustee McGovern. Any more discussion? And a roll call vote.
Trustee Geis?
Yes.
McGovern?
Yes.
Trustee Page?
Yes.
Trustee Robinson?
Yes.
Supervisor Hewitt?
Yes. Okay, the minutes are approved. The first piece on the agenda for the 708
is the resolution to appoint. This was one of the hardest decisions that I've had to make as supervisor because there was an amazing pool of candidates that had been given a whole lot of ability to communicate with us and what they're looking to do. These terms need to be staggered, and so we want to make sure that not everybody ends at the same time. We also want to make sure that there's as much community involvement as we can, understanding that there's a variety of bridges that need to be built. One of the pieces that we realized is that we need to create some positions that hadn't previously been in existence. So before we get here, there's the 708 board has an enormous goal and job ahead of them for the next 2 years in particular, of creating what then will be a safety net for for Lisle Township. And so we need a whole lot of hands and a whole lot of people being involved in this in a whole lot of different ways. There's some people that have a special background that is going to be extremely helpful on not just the 708 board, but in the township in general, as we traverse a whole lot of different governmental entities. So I want to take some time before we appoint these to talk about some new people that are going to be helping us with the 708 as well. And that's there's a few people. Christine Garicki is a serving board member on District 203. And as such, there's 7 school districts in Lisle Township. And we really sorely could use a liaison with that, with the school districts to make sure that the different pieces in our township that are growing will be and incorporated with young people in particular, who have different needs. Then we also have County Board Member Paula Deacon Garcia, who is going to help serve and has been serving with Lisle Township for many years as the liaison to the county board. There's a lot of things that we're doing with ARPA, with a variety of different programs that we really could use some help from Paula. Rashmi is somebody that is very connected with the youth. And frankly, we need to be expanding our programs, understanding that particular population. But back to the board. I was only given the choice for 7 people to start off the board. And I'm asking that the board expand this by 2, which is one thing that the board can do. And so Yosh, Yamanaka, sorry, Yamanaka. We would like to appoint you to a 4-year term. Gina Sharp, we would like to appoint you to a 4-year term. Alexander Zubenko, we would like to appoint you to a 4-year term. Chris Batio, we would like to appoint you to a 3-year term. John DeCanto, we'd like to appoint to a 3-year term. Drew Bolda to a 2-year term, and Donna Pepperdall to a 2-year term. And these will come up again. 2 people that we want to make sure are appointed in addition to those 7 would be Stephen Davis and Audrey to the additional two terms. We also want to make sure that the people that have applied stay involved. So there's a number of significant people, Victoria, among others, Victoria, Jenny, and Jean is going to be our liaison to the board as a non-voting board member as well. But we'll make sure that everyone that applied keeps updated with the changes that are going to be happening with this new board, and we're very excited to welcome you. So,
All of you for applying, every one of you.
do we have a motion to approve the appointments of the Lisle Township Community Member?
I will make a motion to approve for the Lisle Township 708 Mental Health Board.
Resolution. Just name the resolution.
The resolution number 2023-01.
Thank you, Trustee Page. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Trustee Robinson. Any discussion? Okay, and then a roll call vote.
Trustee Weiss,
Yes.
McGovern.
Yes.
Trustee Page,
Yes.
trustee Robinson,
Yes.
Supervisor Hewitt.
Yes. Great, the 708 board has been appointed. Congratulations, everyone. We very much look forward to hearing what you all are going to do in the future. Thank you. Okay, then next we have Pat Callahan with GNC Architects, and he's going to give us some more information about what the progress has been this last month.
Thank you very much for having me again this evening. Last Friday, we met again to review the program, existing program with some of the changing programs that the considering the facility. Trustee Robinson was in attendance with reviewing with our staff in detail. There's another upcoming meeting this Friday. That's the same. My staff has easily made some adjustments. The exterior of the building essentially is going to remain untouched from what we saw before in terms of the architecture and the feel. Obviously, but the interior needs to be modified because obviously there's great things happening there in the township, and we're going to make some modifications to accommodate those future programs. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Anyone have any questions for your architect? Okay. Then thank you, Pat. We'll be talking to you soon more. Okay, back to item number 4, which is the discussion and possible action on the resolution 23002 adopting the township FOIA policy and appointment of a township FOIA officer, making clear that Clerk Polowitz decided that she didn't wish to be it, and so that's where we begin. After much discussion. So the procedures are making sure that everything is in writing. When we have a legal situation as a FOIA, things need clearly defined in writing to make sure that the public, that everyone internally understands what the flow of the process needs to be.
Diane, before you continue, I just want to ask for some clarification because of the public comment that Clerk Polowitz gave earlier. So we're making these changes to the procedure, which you explained to me, which I understand, but I'm feeling like there's some discrepancy between this change and the agreeability of this change. So can we just get some clarification?
I'm happy to provide it. I sent the draft after the meeting last month. I sent the draft policy to the clerk to review, and I don't want. Do you want me to talk about the email back or? Okay, so she sent an email back saying that she did not want to be appointed the FOIA officer.
There was an email prior to that. I sent an email prior to that going through the policy where there were things that were redundant and there were things that would just stretch out the time that for the response, and some parts that were just not right in the policy. And with that, I did not get any kind of email back, any kind of call, any kind of discussion whatsoever. So so that's where this email came, because when you look at the policy is not a good policy.
Okay, the policy is consistent with section 3 and well with various sections of FOIA, but the policy has been is consistent with what FOIA, what the law actually says. So I know that some of these things were being done previously. That's great. But some of the stuff, like keeping a file with the, retaining all the information about the request.
I have that.
Okay. All this does is try to streamline it so that everyone's on the same page.
How is it streamlined? I just want to be clear, because we can't have a statement that there's a lack of, that something is not agreeable, but then we're changing something, but then now I don't understand why we're changing it. And I know in the last meeting, we discussed that you felt that there was some issue with availability, but Clerk Polowitz made it very clear that she's very available, and should be no time lag in there. And then I guess now she's concerned with the process and possibly the integrity of that process, which then would put possibly her credentials at risk. Is that what I'm understanding? I just would like some clarification.
So I'm not sure. I mean, trustee guys, I'm not sure what you're asking for. The clerk said that she didn't want to be the FOIA officer. FOIA requires us, section 3.5 FOIA requires each public body shall designate one or more officials or employees to act as its freedom of information officer or officers.
Yeah, I'm understanding that. How did we get to that place though? That's what I'm not understanding. What was happening with the process
So we didn't have a written process. And in order to clarify the process, I asked to make sure that there was clarity in the process. And so
right. And if I recall, you asked at the time, trustee Rose and Clerk Polowitz to come up with an agreeable process, which they did. So I'm just confused why I thought when we had the conversation earlier that the process was changing, it was because that's what everyone wanted. But now I'm understanding that maybe there was something that wasn't clear, and that was the result versus that maybe being the best solution.
So the issue that there was no written policy for any of our FOIA procedures, and with a few new people in the office, we wanted to make sure that everything was clear to everyone, including the public. And so I had our attorney who has worked on FOIA on a number of other municipalities. It's something that she is very well versed in. I wanted to make sure that an expert at FOIA helped to create a policy, a written policy that everybody could agree to. And so that's what was started last month, was creating that policy. Lisa and the Clerk Polowitz and Jordana and I were all on a variety of different emails. And for again, we were trying to define the process. And in order to have a process, it's really helpful to agree to it and to just elucidate what exactly that means. So, and our attorney believed that that was a good idea.
I think having a written policy just clarifies it for everyone.
So that's why there was the desire to clarify this. And so that's why this came about, was to make sure that we have a process that's clearly defined.
I am completely in agreement with having defined processes that are well documented and adhered to, because I think that, I agree that that's very important to have. What I'm still trying to understand is why we are further reducing the duties of the clerk, and why we are potentially removing a system of checks and balances and putting so much all into the same hands when it comes to some of these procedures.
With the original piece had the clerk as named as the FOIA officer. And so everything had it as the clerk as the FOIA officer. After the email a few days ago, when the clerk said that she didn't wish to be, then we took her off of it.
In between,
so that was
I sent an email and there's been no communication. And I had grave concerns with the procedure that was put in place, and the length of time it would take to return a FOIA request, and the process all along. And some of it, I'm not sure if it's truly legal. So for that point, because there was no discussion, nobody responded to me at all. Nobody spoke to me. I only got one.
Okay, well, this is the part that I'm finding disturbing, because we need to be operating And Jordana, you are the attorney for the entire township, not Diane, not Supervisor Hewitt. So let's be mindful of that, please, and not only in our actions, but in our tone. Clerk Polowitz, you gave up the position. You no longer wanted to be the position, but can I just have some clarity as to what happened in that process? Because I'm about checks and balances. I really take that very seriously. It concerns me that FOIA requests would, these are requests that are made by our constituents for clarity and transparency. And I'm concerned about the checks and balances that may not be occurring here when we are further reducing the eyes on things that are happening there in the township office. So would you mind just clarifying that? I know I don't want to have a 3-hour, 4-hour meeting tonight, but I need to understand how we got to where we are.
So I don't know how it started, but you were there at the meeting, I believe, where they were removing me from the role as FOIA officer. I didn't know till the meeting and giving it to the office manager. So, clearly I had something to say about that. Like,
so there is
what
no
I'm
office
doing.
manager, just so you remember.
What is her role?
She's an operations manager.
I apologize. Okay, I apologize. Operations manager. And so therefore, there was still no communication right after that. And then the next thing I saw was a resolution with my name on it that I'm back as a FOIA officer, right? So, and with that was the procedures and the policies. So I read through the procedures and the policies, and I have concerns about those. And with that, then I did get an email from Lisa Rose asking if I read through them, and I got back to her, and I believe I got back to both of you with my concerns to it, my suggestions, my input. And I also told you how we're typically doing it, which does follow the law. So beyond that, there was no communication back. I felt that some of this, I'm not a lawyer, but I felt that some of this had liability on myself, and there's some parts that were blatantly illegal to me. So I didn't feel confident with this duty any longer when I can't even have a conversation with the people who are supposed to be giving me the documents. So with that, I had to back out from it because I do feel liability.
I don't see how we can move forward with making a decision about the change of who the FOIA officers are, or what the procedure is. It seems like there needs to be some further discussion.
Okay,
one step further.
Just to clarify something, there is no FOIA officer now. So even if
I've been illegal this whole time.
Excuse me.
No, the board
excuse me. My name is John Trowbridge. I'm the Lisle Township assessor. I've been the Lisle Township assessor for the last 29 years. I am the FOIA officer for the Lisle Township assessor's office. And I've been designated as such. I've had that position for an expanded period of time. The statute says that every public body shall have at least one FOIA officer. I believe there may be some interpretation left to that, but the interpretation that we had is indicating that an assessor's office should have somebody who is a FOIA officer. And this is condensing this down to one person from a different office. So I, with all due respect, I disagree with the statement that there are no FOIA officers.
The supervisor's office does not have a FOIA officer. The first thing that needs to be done is to appoint one. If there's a motion we can revise the resolution, we can pass it as written. It's entirely up to the trustees.
I'm going to make a motion to revise the resolution.
Can you explain how you'd like it revised so that we can vote on it?
I'd like there to be some discussion with Clerk Polowitz about the concerns that she has about the resolution. So if Clerk Polowitz would like to identify what those items are, that would be helpful.
I would also like the road district excluded from this policy.
It is. It's not part of. It's not part of the policy. It's
people interpret the township not only as the township but also the assessor's office.
No. It says all requests to the supervisor, assessors, and clerk's office.
I anticipate that many request for Freedom of Information Act, road district, we'll go to the supervisor.
So I guess I'm, you want a line in there just saying forward that to the.
Road district is not.
It's up to you guys. How you want to do it.
We have a motion.
I'm unclear on what the motion is. I don't know if anyone else of the.
It is by trustee guys to move to further discussion regarding the FOIA.
Okay. Is there a second?
So we want to clarify each department. And council, can you give us an example of a 3-person FOIA structure where we have?
Well,
like
the way the statute's set up is that the statute requires the township, the board, to appoint a point person, so that there's one person that's handling all the FOIA requests that come in the hopes that things don't get lost in the shuffle. I mean, you can understand that why a point person is appointed. So whoever that point person is, they're responsible for going to each, to the assessor's office, to the supervisor's office, to anyone else who, if there's a question about the food pantry, to go to that person and gather all these documents, put them together, redact them if they, do the search, investigation, redactions, and produce. The procedure that I put together, I've done for other local governments. It complies with FOIA. It gives a day-to-day. This is what we do on day 1. This is what we do on day 2. Day 3, we have 5 days to respond. So it just makes sure things are timely. It's not, maybe some of these can be answered all in one day, but maybe not. And this walks through what the procedure is for when there's a, when we receive a FOIA, what happens? And that's all that it's meant to do. The email that the clerk sent me, I did respond to it. I'm just looking at my emails now.
About the highway.
The other changes I thought were procedural stuff that I didn't feel like it was my job to change. I felt like it was, something that could be discussed.
It is your job to be responsive.
Well, I was responsive. I sent an email back answering the legal question. But in any event,
about the highway,
which was the legal question in an email. In any event, I mean, it's up to the board. If the board wants to change the policy, they can change the policy. We can work on this tonight, or
I think that the things that you said make sense, that, the steps that you mentioned make sense, but we still have not heard Clerk Polowitz explain, sorry, it's been a long day, explain where her concerns were.
I'd have to pull up my email for some of them. You want to hear that now, or do you want to have need to discuss during the month and come back? Or you tell me, you guys
have the email pulled up if you want me to read it. I am a little uncomfortable doing so because I think that falls under attorney.
So the FOIA log is with the FOIA officer or operations manager, and they're stored with her, no longer in the clerk's office.
Well,
it's all electronic.
I mean, that would be the goal, right? To have it all electronic, so we don't have papers. But there needs to be some, I mean, the whole purpose of the log is just to keep track of all these, because it's perfectly acceptable under FOIA. And I have seen this done before, where someone submits a FOIA, give me all of the FOIAs and responses, all the requests and responses that you have received in the last year and that you responded to. It's like some member of the public doing an audit, right? Mm-hmm. And how do you know what's, so the purpose of the log is just to keep track of this. And so things don't get, they'll fall through the cracks. That's the main point of this, because if they do fall through the cracks, there's, there's concerns that, we'll get an unfavorable opinion from the PAC and so forth. So that's the goal of it. I'm uncomfortable reading an email that was sent to me, because I think it would fall under attorney-client, but
so
I think
I'm requesting for Clerk Polowitz to share what she's comfortable sharing then.
Good. There's two issues. One is there's a policy that's been documented that is part of the resolution, and I know clerk has some concerns with some of it, if she is going to be the FOIA officer, some concerns with that. So,
but she's elected not to be. So there's that.
But it was based on information that we do not understand. So I would like to understand what her concerns are, because maybe she retains that position if we can come to an understanding.
You are referring to as the office manager, actually. I'm trying to.
Can I remember the public ask a question?
No.
If acknowledged by the chair. Go ahead.
Does anybody know how many FOIA requests the township has received in the past year?
25. That's a round estimate. This is not, we should not be spending this much time. The policy should not be that complicated. It's that easy.
And really the other issue is that there's been problems with making sure that this is all communicated properly. That's why, again, we're just trying to put this in writing and creating an understanding between people that this is how it's going to be done, because it's the law that we must designate a FOIA officer. And again, we didn't have a written policy on any of this. There was a verbal understanding that apparently had gotten confused along the chain of verbalness, meaning that, you know, sometimes when you tell somebody, you know, this is what it's going to be, and this is what it's going to be, they don't always come up with the same conversation. And so that's what we realized had happened.
Just the fact that I can ask that question and you can't tell me exactly how many requests there have been on exactly how many days.
I could, and I just answered you approximately 25.
I was just asking a question because it seems as if policy makes sense.
A policy does make sense.
Nobody's questioning the policy, and you asked her a question off the cuff. My question remains, what are the concerns about the policy? What were the concerns that
there needs to be a motion? There's a motion. Is there a second to Trustee Geis's motion? Not hearing a second.
Second. I feel like we're not comfortable with this, so I would like to second.
Okay, then a discussion.
Set clarification what the motion is.
Well, I have
look at the
motion by Trustee Geis to move to further discussion regarding the FOIA officer. Resolution 23.
To make it more transparent. To make it.
That's what Trustee Geis, is that correct? That's the motion I have.
It is correct. Thank you.
Okay, so just so I'm clear, Trustee Geis, are you suggesting that I mean, unfortunately, the board can't meet without following the Open Meetings Act. Are you suggesting that there be a special meeting to discuss this? How did you want this to proceed?
And is it something we can go into session over or no?
No, this is not something you can go into closed session.
We'll have to have a separate meeting.
So we're still in the discussion mode because and then we'll go through the roll call, and then if other motions are made, other motions can be made. Okay.
So my question though is, because we have not made this, because we have not completed this, then Clerk Polowitz, are you willing to retain your role until we get clarification on this policy, determine whether that's something you still want to remove yourself from or continue with?
If I could retain it and move forward with it until it's solved.
Oh,
but
I would be comfortable with that.
And the same thing for John Trowbridge, because they're removing his as well.
I would be most comfortable with that as well.
Okay, there's a motion on the table that has a second.
Okay, then
we need to have a vote.
Roll call.
Trustee Geis?
Yes.
Trustee McGovern?
Yes.
Trustee Page?
Yes.
Trustee Robinson?
Yes.
Supervisor Hewitt?
Yes. Okay. Then moving on to the discussion and possible action of adopting a COBRA policy.
And before we move on, can I just ask, because I know that I just want to make sure that we're complying with 3.5. Can we, because the supervisor's office has not appointed, that this board has not appointed a FOIA officer, and I understand that the clerk is willing to step up for that role, at least temporarily. Can there be a motion to appoint her as the FOIA officer for, and we can appoint to.
I'll make a motion to appoint Clerk Polowitz to retain the position as FOIA officer until we make a determination otherwise.
Yeah.
And also, do we have to make a separate motion for Trowbridge, or no, because he's fine, right? So
you can do both in the same motion. So
if I could just interject just for a moment, and maybe the FOIA statutes have changed. I actually had the opportunity to speak with a PAC officer this week about this very issue. I raised some of the concerns that I have. Could you read that? Could you read that affidavit?
Did I read the affidavit? Yes, I did.
Are you willing to sign that?
No, because it's inaccurate. It's not,
Okay.
It doesn't correctly state the law.
I spoke with a PAC officer, and my understanding is, as an elected official, your responsibility, they changed the FOIA laws, like my responsibility is not as assessor, but I'm actually the FOIA officer or the assessor. So each of the offices, and historically, that officer, the clerk is the official FOIA officer for the clerk's office. The supervisor is the official FOIA officer for the supervisor's office. The assessor is the official officer for the assessor's office, and the highway commissioner is. Now, from that, as elected officials, we can delegate that responsibility to someone else. In a municipal situation where we don't have all these officers, that what she's proposing is to make this all spread out. I believe township government is somewhat unique, and we have all these officials, and who knows better where the information is than the elected officials themselves. So I recommend that the elected officials themselves be the FOIA officers, which I've been for a long period of time. And I suggest that the others do the same, but I also understand that if they don't have that time and availability, that they designate an official in their office or another person in their office to be that person. And I believe when you put that together, it really takes care of the whole FOIA issue completely, because historically the clerk's office has been the portal to which when the FOIAs come in and we get FOIAs to our office independently, we shoot them to the clerk and say it's coming in. Here's what our information is, and then she sends it out. So it's all done in one place through the clerk's office.
And it's the same for the road district. Every time we go out for bids in the spring, I know we're going to get 12 FOIA requests. The bids themselves and also for the results. We complete the FOIA request, send it out, it's in the copy.
And from the other townships that I've spoken to, that's exactly how they're doing it too. It's just more eyes, there's more eyes on it. It's not just one person doing it actually.
Do I need to correct the motion, Jordana?
If you wish to correct the motion, there hasn't been a second yet, so you may amend it at any time.
I have trustee Geist and trustee McGovern. I apologize. The next one.
Yeah.
So I'm going to make a motion for Clerk Polowitz and Tax Assessor Trowbridge to retain full FOIA officer duties.
And Ed Young, do we have to move it into?
No, because this board doesn't have any say over the district.
I have a second.
Okay, any discussion? And a roll call vote?
Trustee Geist?
Yes.
McGovern?
Yes.
Trustee Page?
Yes.
Trustee Robinson?
Yes.
Supervisor Hewitt?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, next is the COBRA policy. And again, this was determined by the last board. And we're just defining what the policy is, because this was again determined by the last board that we would not be the administrator of the COBRA of COBRA. So does anybody want to make a motion to accept resolution 23 or 2023-003?
I'll make a motion to accept 2023-003 resolution to adopt the COBRA policy and procedure.
Thank you, trustee Page.
Second. Thank you, trustee Robinson, and we're opening it up for discussion now.
Under paragraph 5, says that it's understood to me the Road District as a separate entity is responsible for administering any COVID benefits, bringing payments, and processing fees to its employees and defendants. I thought the attorney emailed me that you would accept those checks. Is there some discrepancy?
No, there's not a discrepancy. I emailed you back.
Yes, as long as you act as COBRA administrator, because the road would be.
That's what you said at the last meeting, is that you would act as the administrator for the COBRA benefits. Okay.
Is treasurer of the road district, is the supervisor going to deposit the check that the road?
I will do what my attorney and my accountant say.
That's what the policy just requires you to be the administrator of the COBRA for the road district. But as I said in my email, yes, the supervisor.
The township supervisor will not accept payments from the last sentence.
And it says it is understood and agreed that the road district as a separate entity is responsible for administering any COVID benefits. You want that amended more?
What's the last sentence? Is that all there is?
Yeah.
What's the last sentence you find? I have a copy that says the last sentence on that thing says the township supervisor will not accept payments from the road district employees and or their family.
No, the policy that I sent you, I sent you an update today.
Okay.
I'm sorry, did that not get?
It
wasn't posted.
I apologize. That's my fault then. Just 1 second.
So we're clarified that as the treasurer, she will deposit the checks in the road district accounts.
I'm going to send this to you. Oops.
I will do what my attorney says.
I'm asking a simple question.
Yes, and I
When
said
send
I
over
would.
checks, are you going to deposit them in the road district accounts?
Yes, with the advice and consent of my attorney. Yes.
Yes.
And another thing, the road district will not be subject to just.
I don't understand. The road district's not subject to COBRA?
No. We went through this last time. You have to have 20 employees.
What? So I'm confused about why there's a check from one of your employees to pay for COBRA.
You have the right to continue, offer the former employees continuation of coverage. It's not required by, I mean, I'm not subject to it, but I can still do it if I
Okay.
choose.
Okay. I understand what you're saying now. Okay.
Supervisor Hewitt, could you just clarify when you said your attorney, who is that? Jordana?
The township's attorney.
The township's attorney.
Okay. Does the account have a problem with this?
No, we defer to what they're.
Weren't you the first one to bring this up? And could you explain to me why you brought it up?
I brought it up because we had all different situations happening. So we had some where the check was coming from the employee to be on COBRA. We had others that there were third-party administrators sending us checks because they were administering the COBRA. So when I looked at it, there was no consistency to how it was being done. So that's why I wanted to talk to the attorney about what is the correct way for everybody to be doing this, so we don't have everybody under a different set of rules.
Did you mention anything about liability?
I did ask about liability, if there was a difference between a third-party administrator and administering it themselves with the taking the checks directly. And the indication was that there was more of a liability if it was done with a check coming directly to the township versus if there was a third party that was the administrator giving us a check that we deposited.
And that was from the attorney about the liability?
When I talked to Diane, she asked the attorney about the liability.
And you think there's more liability? I mean, what liability would be if I'm not subject to COVID?
So I'm not advising you on your liability. Okay, that I'm
Well,
not
if the
advising you
township-
on.
If I'm not subject to COBRA, what additional liabilities could accrue to the township?
My concern was that, as the accountant has said, that we were handling different payments different ways. And again, this is another place where something could fall through the cracks. If we're handling the employee's payment, something gets lost in the shuffle of, because we don't have a written policy on how this is handled, and the COBRA doesn't get paid, and the employee loses that their coverage. So that was what this was meant to address. We went back and forth because Commissioner Young was very clear that the road district was not going to involve a third party administrator for it. So because of that, we're making an exception for his employees, but otherwise the office wants, just so that we make sure that everyone's paying their COBRA the same way, everyone's getting the benefit, and that things are
not subject to COBRA.
I'm not arguing with you about that.
COBRA benefits, so they're not. It's a clear distinction. Okay.
I don't really understand.
Her job was to deposit the check as treasurer of the road district.
And she's going to continue to do that.
She didn't, she sent it back. So if we're happy now, I just want to make it clear that I don't want to go through this again. Her responsibility as treasurer of the road district is if we send money over, she's to deposit.
I understand, and that's you've made that abundantly clear. So this policy does not apply to the road district, to be utterly clear. That's the purpose of of having it drafted this way. Every other employee at the township will go through the third party assured partners in order to use COBRA benefits, and that makes sure that nothing is lost in translation and everyone's going through the same procedure. That was the purpose.
So the copy that we're agreeing upon is not in front of us right now.
I apologize for that. That was my oversight. I just emailed it to, did you get it or no? I'm sorry. And I'm happy to. There you go. Yep. Can you, oh, no, go ahead. All right.
No, I don't.
And then if you just scroll down, I can say what the changes are. Sorry. It's actually not similar to this. Is that how? Is that better? Okay. So the policy just lays out what COBRA is, that the township gives employees and their family through COBRA health benefits, and that it's our policy to follow that. It's the policy that the supervisor is not going to accept individual checks from township employees. Doesn't say anything about road district because road district doesn't apply. If this doesn't apply to the road district, and then if you scroll down to paragraph 5. Oh, I'm sorry, paragraph 4, just the township's not responsible for processing the payments. And then it's understood that the road district as a separate entity is responsible for administering any benefits for its employees and families. And that's what I said to you.
It's clear by reading that everybody agrees that she's going to deposit the checks that we send over.
Yes, because this policy doesn't apply to you, which is what that last paragraph is.
Okay.
So to be clear, part of this came about because there is a variety of different situations happening and we wanted to clarify how we were handling this. So with that,
the method of clarifying was to return the check to the employee and write a memo on policy and send it to me without any discussion at all.
that was the advice that I was given.
By whom? Council? Council said don't go talk to the road district?
No, they the advice that I was given was to send the check back.
So you unilaterally try to influence policy of the road district.
No, I listened to, I realized that again, we didn't have any written policy about any of this.
Say, Ed, I'm thinking of doing this. What do you think?
Well, frankly, I did reach out to the road district through your council. So it's not that there wasn't
So
conversation.
now we're gonna have a discussion about operations, but in order to do that, you gotta go to council and then another council. That's a wise use of money of the taxpayer, isn't it?
That's Jane. How much you got?
As an attorney, I am the ethics for attorneys, I cannot reach out directly to a representative.
No, but you could tell your client, hey, why do you call?
And I can also reach out to your attorney. That's what I can do.
This has been a long discussion. Was there a motion that we're coming back to?
I don't even remember.
There is a motion by trustee Page to approve the resolution 23003 adopting the township COBRA policy. The motion was seconded by trustee Robinson. I would just ask that if you do approve this, could I get the new one that you're approving?
Yeah.
Okay, would we like to take a roll call, please? Because there was a motion and a second in discussion.
Trustee,
I'm sorry to interrupt. Do all the trustees have the most updated resolution?
So this is the resolution didn't change.
But yeah, the resolution didn't change. The policy is attached as an exhibit incorporated there. Yeah, thereon.
Did you? I'm sorry. Am I missing something? Did you know?
Well, the policy attached to the resolution changed, and certainly the trustees don't have that.
Well, it's just a public screen. So it's.
I guess my question is, are the trustees comfortable voting for a resolution that has a policy that's changed? And when was it changed?
Actually, the policy was adopted at the last with the last board in what was that? In prior to this, to our being seated, but again, there wasn't a clarity or definition of how the policy was supposed to actually be performed. So we didn't, meaning that we didn't
tonight.
Yeah.
Meaning that, for example, what I'm trying to say is that we didn't change the policy of us not being the COBRA administrator. That was changed in 2020 at some point, is what my understanding is about the COBRA. So this wasn't our change. We're just understanding that because there was a change in a previous administration, that we're clarifying what that means.
But had it not been questioned, we would not even see the policy in front of us, which concerns me. We work full-time jobs. If it is changed on the website, can we get a email or something?
I take complete responsibility for that. Earlier today, I was waiting to hear from Commissioner Young or his attorney on whether or not the changes I made were acceptable to him. And when I did hear back, I didn't forward it, which
you're human. Is it possible that maybe you could just shoot us a text when we need to take note of something right away?
Not an issue. I'm emailing it to you now, so so the clerk and you.
I'm asking. That's great, but what I'm saying is, because it could happen again. It's, we're all, like I said, we're all human, but what I'm saying is it possible? I don't know if it's even possible. Could you just shoot us a text and say, hey, there's been a change. You're going to be voting on that tonight. Make sure you look at it so that it's not a problem. So
will do.
Little text, because like for me, I'm not sitting at a desk in front of a computer where I'm going to have access to email pop up, but if you shoot me a text, I can go and look at it.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
So we're clarifying something that happened again in a previous administration that we're defining, because we realized that there was a whole variety of situations that had never been clarified. That's why this is happening. So are we at the taking a motion or taking a roll call, Clerk Palowitz?
Okay. Trustee Geist?
Yes.
Trustee McGovern?
Yes.
Trustee Page?
Yes.
Trustee Robinson,
Yes.
Supervisor Hewitt.
Yes. Okay, the COBRA policy has been updated. And is passed. Next, we have discussion and possible action on resolution number 23004. Discussing the designees for with respect to banking transactions. So these are, again, we have a new attorney, which means that we're making sure that our basic stuff is being covered. We delineated that we have Naperville Bank and Trust and Fifth Third as our depositories. And that then on a daily basis, for example, we have rent checks that need paying. In particular, that's one of the biggest necessities, to have somebody here that can sign a check. So we're designating Lisa Rose as well as to be able to sign a check in authorization as myself.
And who else was on there prior?
Lisa Rose and you. And so you can still sign checks.
And so Lisa Rose was on there as the senior trustee. I was on there as clerk, and the operations manager was on there, or whatever the title was prior, and yourself. So there were 4 people who could sign the checks or look at the checks.
So Trustee Rose was on there because she was the lead lead trustee. So wouldn't that make me the lead trustee now?
Yes.
The lead trustee has to be appointed, and that has not been done.
Appoint Lisa?
No, yes,
No,
we
I never
did.
heard.
At the
What?
very start of the trustee, we, at the very start of our session, because she had the most votes, she was the lead trustee.
So now I'm the lead trustee. So then that appointment should be in motion.
It does not, it is not automatic, or it is not required. Is that correct, Attorney Wysocki?
I actually have never heard of a lead trustee. I don't know what that is.
Well, I'm sure Supervisor Hewitt could explain.
Longest time.
So
okay, well,
I'm
the senior
asking-
trustee then is, that's a term, I'm familiar with senior trustee, but I've never used the term lead trustee. I don't, just so we're clear, the resolution to appoint signatories, the board can appoint, you know, anyone for it. So you can appoint employees or officials. It's up to the board how many signatories you want to have on the account or accounts. This is just authorizing people to sign. So it's up to the board diverse or how many people they want and who they want.
Okay.
So the resolution that we're talking about right now is resolution number 2023-004. And this is what is on the agenda and on the table right now.
I'm not comfortable moving forward with the resolution when we don't have another elected official as a signee like we have previously.
Okay. Well, we're still in, does anybody want to make a motion, and then we can get into discussion
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 23-004 to authorize the designation of signatories with respect to banking transactions.
Thank you, Trustee Page.
I'll second.
Thank you, Trustee Robinson. Any more discussion?
So how many folks can sign now?
3.
Okay.
And of the 3,
Wait, no, there are 4. Excuse me, there are 3 signatories left, but before it was Supervisor Hewitt, it was Bill Green as the finance director, it was myself as the clerk, and it was Trustee Rose when she was trustee. So now it's going to be the office manager and the supervisor, and nobody else will be looking at the checks until audit, but this is the day-to-day function. And there's the question as well of what if someone goes on vacation or something like that as well. I mean, there's issues of why there's.
And every check needs 2 signatures.
Again, I just speak to checks and balances. It should be,
Used to be 4, now it'll be 2.
For example, we don't even have an audit of expenditures this evening, so I'm assuming we're not paying any bills this month, but that's another story. So what I'm saying is do we need to do we need to approve, Jordana, this is for you. Do we need to approve this and then make another motion to discussion?
No.
Just a second.
There's a motion and a second and then discussion. Just to clarify, this is on the cow agenda, but one of the things that is in the pipeline and unfortunately getting rolling here has just taken a while. So one of the things in the pipeline is a purchasing policy that would the purchasing policy is designed to create a written policy. So, again, we're trying to just make sure everyone's on the same page. Part of that we'll need to address, this board will need to address, and this is what I wanted to talk about at the committee meeting, that the statute requires the clerk to attest to payments. And that's not something that's been the practice. Oh, geez. Sorry, I really don't want to break the chair. That hasn't been the practice, and we need to establish whether, if that is that's something that the township code requires, and the board can appoint other people to do that attestation. But so this idea that there's not a second set of eyes isn't really true, because the township code is drafted in such a way that the clerk has the second set of eyes on outgoing checks. So this is to determine who's the primary signatory on it. And then we need to discuss, and the board needs to make a decision concerning the attestation part of it. So we can discuss that in more detail with the next agenda, because that's where I put it, but that's.
So you're saying all the checks that I thought that I was attesting, that I was told that was an attestation, I'm signing those checks, and I'm liable as a clerk for signing. The other part to the question is, would these banks even allow my signature on the line when I'm not a signatory?
Well, you're not signing as the primary, you're attesting to the signature.
So how many signatures does a check need?
The checks would need 2 signatures.
So then there needs 2 signatures and
No. Each check is not the signatory. It's an either or. It's not everyone. You don't need 3 people to sign it, or 2 people to sign the check.
The bank is going to allow me to sign a check when I'm not, even as an attestation, when I'm not a signatory.
You're attesting to the primary signatory.
But
so
you're saying that each check requires 2 signatures. I'm not a signature, I'm an attestation.
That's what the township code has you as.
But what does the bank say? Are they requiring 2 signatures? So
I don't think the bank is,
something?
I don't think the bank, the township code says what it is. I don't think banks are necessarily used to attestations and so forth, but the code, that's what it says, is that the clerk needs to attest to the.
But do you understand my question? Like,
yeah, the concern is that the bank will reject it because they don't know what the township code is.
You're saying that each check requires 2 signatures. I'm not a signature, I'm just an attestation. I'm not okaying the check. I'm okay, I'm just saying that it's her signature.
Sorry, the township. This, I think it'll be easier for me if I'm electronically.
perhaps we could do for next meeting?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that question can be, discussed at the cow where it's on the agenda. I'm a little concerned that we're getting too far from the current, what's on the agenda under the Open Meetings Act. But.
So
I don't know if there's other, I'm sorry, what?
do we want to make a motion to table this?
Well, right now there's a motion and second on the table to approve the
then we need
resolution.
to
So
take that vote. Correct.
if there's no further.
Is there any other discussion?
So we're all clear with what the motion is, or
I think we're still digging into it.
I guess
I don't know how we vote on it.
So I
Well,
think
the
we
motion is to
need to-
approve it is written, so. Call a vote.
okay. So the motion is to approve the resolution authorizing the designation of signatories with respect to banking transactions. So, ready for a vote, trustee Geist?
No.
Trustee McGovern?
No.
Trustee Page?
I'm gonna say no. Can I add to that, or is this not the time?
It's just a vote.
Okay.
Trustee Robinson?
No.
Supervisor Pruitt?
No. Okay, then moving on to discussion and action on resolution number 23005, approving an intergovernmental agreement with PACE to join its municipal vehicle program. In the PACE section, the one that we're discussing is resolution 2023-005, and that's approving an intergovernmental agreement with PACE to join its municipal vehicle program. What that is we're trying to rent, lease 2 vehicles, 1 paratransit and 1 other van, 10-seat van for senior citizens and for the disabled. And so, as you can see, we've adjusted our policies to align for certain safety conscious positions to align with DOT and PACE policies of necessary drug testing. And that's what's in here, attesting to what those policies are. Do we have a motion to approve a resolution?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 23-005.
I'll second.
And any discussion? Okay, and a roll call vote?
Trustee Geist?
Yes.
Govern?
Yes.
Trustee Page?
Yes.
Trustee Robinson?
Yes.
Supervisor Hewitt?
Yes. Okay, it's passed. Then discussion and possible action on resolution number 2023-006, a resolution approving an intergovernmental paratransit local share agreement with Ride DuPage and with PACE. And this is between the city of Naperville and the various townships. This is by mile. But we're not being charged for miles that we're not using. And this is a agreement that we've been doing for many years with the city of Naperville and Lisle Township and Lisle Township. Do we have a motion to approve resolution?
I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution 23-006 of the paratransit local share agreement.
I'll second.
Thank you, trustee McGovern and trustee Page. Any more discussion? And a roll call vote, please.
Trustee Geist?
Yes.
Govern?
Yes.
Trustee Page?
Yes.
Trustee Robinson?
Yes.
Supervisor Hewitt?
Yes. There is not a number 2023-007 because we don't, the bid that we got, I put that in the piece, is not tenable. They wanted far too much money. And so we're looking at other sources. We were speaking with Loaves and Fishes to see, they just ordered one, a truck that's very similar and exactly what we're looking for, but we're looking at other states and other sources so that we don't have that option.
I don't, that wasn't a bid. Right?
No, it was a proposal that they sent. Yes.
Would you have to take out the bid?
It would, yes, it has to go out to bid, given the amount, but my understanding is that we need some other options before we can proceed.
And originally this was supposed to be state pricing. So to be super clear, that means that it was already
bid through the state. We
didn't say that anything.
I'm sorry, what?
I didn't see it on the agenda or on the item itself.
Our discussions with the dealership was that it was state pricing, bid through the state, and that's when we asked for the proposal, there wasn't anything on it. It was our surprise too.
The trustees would like to know that before they even did.
I don't, we were told that it was state pricing and there's no indication on the proposal that that's the case. So, if we do move forward with this in the future, it either has to be through the procurement office of the state of Illinois or bid, locally.
Somebody saying the state pricing and getting it from the state, the pricing itself. Maybe two different things.
So we gather.
Okay, and we don't have any, we are walking away from that because it was not a good situation or deal.
There is a purchasing agency out there that's approved through the state that's it's called sourcing. And they will do that throughout the states to find the price. We won't see this.
Yeah, there's a whole list of cooperatives that we can go through. Yeah.
So exploring other options.
The executive session, we're gonna do at the end of the committee of the whole, so we don't have to have the public waiting out in the lobby. So we'll just move it to the end of the committee of the whole meeting.
So that's now a motion to go.
You can, we can wait until the committee of the whole. We're gonna move because it's on the agenda for the committee of the whole.
Right,
yeah, no problem.
Okay. Then does anybody want to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Not gonna do staff reports.
That's in the committee of the whole.
Yeah, we moved that to the committee of the whole since no final action was being taken.
Okay. Does anybody want to make a motion to adjourn?
I did.
Okay.
I'll second.
Trustee Robinson, thank you, Trustee Page. Any more discussion?
Wait,
Any more discussion? Okay, and then roll call vote.
there was discussion.
Oh,
I believe protocol dictates that you not adjourn the meeting, but you recess it. If you adjourn the meeting, you cannot
go back into executive session.
Well, but we have executive session we're not required to go into the executive session. Now we have an executive session on the agenda for the committee of the whole, but in any event, the Open Meetings Act does not require executive session to be on the agenda itself. So you're okay with adjourning and going into the committee meeting?
Oh yeah, no. The audit, not paying our bills, what are we gonna do?
so that was a piece that was left off the agenda. It was gone over several times by a number of people, and I thought that it was going to be a part of this committee of the whole, but it is not. So there is going to be a special meeting on Saturday at 9 o'clock. We were just discussing what we're doing just to do the audit of the bill.
What trustees are conducting the audit on Saturday morning?
I am not able to.
I'm free. I had started the check run before the meeting today. We can finish
So that's what's going on there.
Who was the second trustee who was starting the check review with you?
Trustee Robinson.
Okay, so we're taking a vote of adjourning properly, and then we can go back to the committee of the whole?
Yes.
Okay, so a roll call vote, Clerk Pollard.
Trustee Guys,
Yes.
McGovern.
Yes.
Trustee Page.
Yes.
Trustee Robinson.
Yes.
Supervisor Hewitt.
Yes.
You don't have trustee for quorum on Saturday?
Yes. Okay, then we'll call this meeting to order.
How would we have enough trustees for quorum on Saturday? Trustee McGovern is not available. I'm not available.
So there's Trustee Robinson and Trustee Page.
And Supervisor Hewitt.
And Supervisor Hewitt. Okay, then moving on to calling this next one, the Wednesday, January 11th Committee of the Whole to order. And we'll do a roll call.
Do you want to do just same?
Yeah, you can just note that the same people are here if you'd like.
Same people are here.
No one more.
Is there any more public comments?
Why aren't the bills being paid?
Because the Open Meeting Act allows the Open Meeting Act does not allow the board to take action without it being on the agenda in 48-hour notice.
And why is it not on the agenda?
Because that was an oversight on our part. So
an oversight last time too?
Last month, I believe the bills were on the agenda in December.
It was in November.
Oh, that was, I don't know anything about that. It was before I was here.
There's
Well,
been
who's creating, I'm just curious, just so I know, who's creating these agendas?
Trustee Guys, you cut out. What did you say?
I apologize. Who is creating the agenda? Why is it's not creating?
Can you hear us okay?
No, the internet.
Nice. Nice. Are you asking who creates the agendas? It's yes. actually a group effort.
So a group of people sit there and type the agenda up? That doesn't sound like a prudent use of your legal fees, first and foremost. Just
so we try to make sure that a number of people that they went through a number of eyes, and frankly they were posted on the website a week before, and apparently nobody noticed this until today.
Oh, accidents happen. I'm not questioning that. I'm just asking who types up the agenda.
It's usually me. This last time it was not, and there was some additions, and there was that piece was left.
Just making sure that people were putting in positions that we're paying salaries to, that we're being fiscally responsible to our taxpaying constituents, that these people who are performing these duties are effective and qualified, because that is pretty significant in my opinion. But accidents happen. I make mistakes all the time. But I'm also not a paid employee.
Okay, so we're going back to the agenda.
Are we still in public comment, since this is relevant to my earlier comment?
Sure, we're still in public comment.
I have a recommendation, okay, because I've been through this with multiple governing bodies where somebody steps down and the lead person in charge appoints somebody and a board of people approve them, and it pretty much goes very smoothly. What happened last month was not smooth. I think we can all agree on that. So in the school board,
and now
the school board,
Diane Hugh.
in the school boards, when this happens, when we have someone on the school board step down, people submit their resumes. Every single one of those applications and resumes are available to every single parent in District 203. It's happened multiple times, and I'm able to read through those resumes, and I'm able to read through that information, and I'm able to contact my elected people on the board and say, hey, I really like this person. I think their background in education is perfect for my children. I would like to see, if not the same transparency in the process, something similar to it. But at the very least, I would like every single board member here to have the actual applications and resumes of every single person who's applied to any given appointed position. I think that in order for you to do your job, you need to have that information in front of you, at the very least.
I don't disagree with you. I mean, we're paying people $75,000, $60,000, $75,000 who are now running the entire operations of a township office, who have never ran an office or governed people or led people or teams or processes or procedures. And so, yeah, I mean, I understand where your frustration would come with that. And I think that we have a responsibility as elected officials to have access to that information so that we can stand behind the decisions that are made. Yeah, I agree. I don't disagree with you.
About any appointments, especially elected positions.
It was requested.
If you step down, sir, I would like to know that your replacement is handled in a very transparent manner to every single taxpayer, regardless of party.
And no up and down vote.
And
How about
not
voting
fair.
on
Not
everyone who applied?
Well, I
Is
mean,
it so hard to
at the
say I
very
want
least-
one and not the other?
I don't know. That is kind of how it happens when you appoint a governing body. That is kind of the procedural way that it goes.
It sucks.
I agree. I agree.
It can be changed right here and now.
Well, no, I mean, that's how it happens.
So
One
public
person is
comment
put forward
goes-
and the board either votes them up or down, and that's what
Okay.
they
Is
do. So, but at least do it in a transparent way. Because taxpayers shouldn't have questions. That's all.
That's wrong.
Is there any further
Up
public
and down
comment?
vote is wrong.
But that's how they all are.
No, it doesn't have to be.
But it does.
No, it doesn't.
Well, it is.
Okay.
It is the law. So it's kind of weird.
Where is that in the law? Because I looked and looked. And
Okay,
looked and I could not find it.
ladies,
I
if you want to
believe
take
it's
your if you want to take your argument outside, that's fine, but is there any public comment online? Are we good? Okay. All right.
Okay, then the supervisor's report, discussion and possible action regarding ethics policy. One of the pieces that we do not have anything because we're just starting this discussion and we're putting this up right now so that we can have and there's nothing that we're voting on. The discussion on potential ethics policy. All the townships are discussing this because there was a change in the laws this year, and the state's attorney is going to be the appointed one if we don't appoint one. And so we're just,
Do you mind if I
Please.
explain some of this? Okay, no problem. So just one of so I don't know how much you are aware or how much you follow the Safety Act. Okay, so this was that big bill that was okay. All right, everyone's nodding. So there's a lot of pieces to this. Some of them were amended, some of them were delayed. Most of it impacts police departments and law enforcement. However, there was an amendment to the Public Officials Conduct Act. So part of that amendment creates it allows public entities to create a new position called the auditing official. I don't know why they use that term, but that's the term of art that they use, who is the person that is taking any complaints, investigating them. They have certain powers under the act, etc. If no one is appointed, so if this board opts not to appoint someone, the default is the state's attorney. That's who handles it. I can tell you that it's kind of mixed with communities whether or not they pick someone, because there's administrative costs involved in that, or if they they have the state's attorney's office handle it. But that's part of in drafting an ethics policy, that would be a piece of it. So that's why it's being reviewed by a lot of townships now, and why a lot of agencies are looking at it because of this new auditing official part. So I wanted to kind of chat with you before I start drafting a policy, what this board would be interested in the policy. I wanted to go over just a couple of things that I think are pertinent because they're in the state statutes. There's the Gift Ban Act, which does not allow officials to accept gifts and bribes. I think that needs to be incorporated into whatever ethics policy the township wants to proceed with. There's also some conflicts of interest prohibitions, so that you can't, if we're going out to bid on something, you're so, you know, the company you have on the side cannot bid on the project. Some of this is self-evident, but it's, you know, it's just important to put it in writing, make sure everyone's aware of it. And then, you know, then there's not any surprises when there's, you know, what your ethical obligations are. Another piece of it is the political, I'm sorry, I just drew a blank. I drew a blank. Let me explain what the act is. So the act does not allow you to utilize township resources when running for an office. This, you know, seems kind of self-evident, but because there's some overlap, you know, obviously you want to make a real clear, bright line rule where it's a public act, the political activities prohibition act, sorry. So I think that would be important to include language, and you know, if not incorporating the state act, sometimes it's nice to have the language in the ordinance itself, just so that you don't have to go look at 100 other documents and statutes to find it, but have language that mirrors those acts. So that was kind of where I started, and then I wanted to get some feedback. What type of thing this board was looking for? Is this board looking for, you know, us to appoint an auditing official to handle complaints and to investigate them? There's obviously, so you know, that puts a burden on someone. so there's some administrative costs with it, or is everyone comfortable using the state's attorney? Additionally, even if we don't appoint an auditing official, the ordinance should address how, if a member of the public or an employee wants to make a complaint that someone has behaved in violation of the ethics ordinance, what that, you know, how that is handled. We want some sort of procedure in there about who handles that type of complaint. And so I want to make sure that you have an opportunity to kind of think about that and maybe give some input on how you want that procedure to look. So I've talked a lot, so I don't know if anyone has any comment.
Is there a pro forma that's been drafted because of all these new policies or requirements?
I've drafted some yes and no. I drafted something. It's not really ready for
yeah,
but no. There's not an official one from the state. I actually I think that most communities, I mean, to my knowledge, the township officials of Illinois organization, I didn't see anything on their website. I can do some more look at some other, like there's different, you know, the Sheriff's Association has their organization, you know, there's a lot of government entities that have organizations. So, I mean, I can do some more searching and see what it is, but, you know, it's, I could also just draft it.
Second question, is there a fee if the state involved in ethics assessments? Because you say there'll be a cost if the board approves it within the board to do.
Oh, you mean if the state's attorney handles it? No, that's handled by the state's attorney's office.
Okay.
Question, have we ever had any complaints? Like how many ethics complaints have there been that we know of in the past few years?
I do not know.
I don't know. I haven't heard any yet. And the piece that is to note is that I guess about 20 years ago, the board in Lisle Township said that if 3 different townships boards said that if there was something and we were one of them, that we would create an ad hoc committee. So that was the last word on the topic in our township.
I'm all for an ethics. We did this in Naperville. I live in Naperville proper, and we did an ethics policy a few years ago, and I'm all for it.
And I'm for using the state's attorney. I think very small.
Well, just to clarify, so I guess there's a couple of questions. So are you in favor of pursuing an ethics ordinance for the township, but you don't want to appoint an auditing official?
Correct.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
So an ordinance, but not an
And then,
ordinance.
right.
Is that something we can revisit? Is that so?
Yeah,
Right.
it's not written in stone. You can always amend it. It's just a matter of whether, kind of whether you want to appoint someone. It could be any official or employee. It's up to you guys how you want to do that. If we don't appoint, the default's the state's attorney. I will say that the drawback with having the state's attorney, and I don't know how much of a concern this is for you, but state's attorneys have very large plates. They have a lot going on they represent the county in civil matters. They obviously handle all the criminal prosecutions of the, for the state. So, are they gonna, how much energy are they gonna put into investigating every complaint?
So when you draw, like, what if someone is in violation of the ethics policy, are they suspended until it goes to trial with the state attorney or reviewed by the state's attorney?
Well, that's the thing. So without a procedure in place, you don't have rules regarding that, like what happens during the investigation, what constitutes a sustained claim versus an unsustained claim or unfounded, or however you want to phrase it. So there's that's open-ended. With the state's attorney's office, they would do the investigation and then they would use their discretion on what to do, whether or not they prosecute. They have to make a determination whether or not a law is violated. If you appoint an auditing official that handles it in-house and they come across something that they suspect is criminal, they should turn it over to the state's attorney to deal, because they don't have the authority to prosecute. That's not something they have the power to do. So it'd have to be turned over to the state's attorney to prosecute in any event. But if it's not criminal, but it violates, there's a whole swath of stuff that would violate ethics rules that is not, criminal. It's not stealing. It's not, bribery. It's not breaking the law. It's just a violation of ethics rules. So, that would be the scope of the ordinance would really be focused on what to do when it doesn't rise to criminal, but it's something that this board feels is an ethical violation. Okay, so you like the idea of an ordinance, you like the idea of an ordinance, you don't want an auditing official.
Right, I like the ordinance, I get started with that.
Okay, trustee Geis, do you have any feedback before I start drafting?
I appreciate you asking. I do not.
I just have a couple questions. What do you envision that the cost of this to be to the taxpayers?
To draft the ordinance? I would guess that it would take like 5 hours, maybe.
5 hours, and your rate is
$2.25.
$2.25 an hour. I'm just trying to pan this out, because I think that actually one of the words that you said, some of the legislation you're talking about, the Gifts Act, that's been in place for a very long time. A lot of the stuff you were describing is self-evident. I think that's the word that you actually used.
Yeah, it is.
I think as a group here, if somebody thinks that there's a violation going on, the ultimate determination of whether it's prosecutable or not is actually going to be made by the state's attorney.
If there's.
So I guess my question is, what is the purpose of this policy if the end result is, if there's something that's wrong, that's done criminal, and it's going to be prosecuted by the state's attorney? Why do we have to pay to have a policy put in, and then pay to potentially have a ethics official, and then have other potential remedies for some act that may have happened, may not have happened?
Yeah. I don't know if you guys have any comments or feedback.
Every company I've ever been in has had an ethics policy.
Yeah.
So I think it's something that the township needs.
I think it's basic.
Agreed.
Bill adjustment.
Yeah, yeah. The more the merrier, right?
Okay, then next is discussion and possible action on the update of the employee handbook, the safety conscious users handbook, and the volunteer handbook. And every year we look at the laws that have been passed and figure out whether they need to be incorporated into our handbooks. The new piece this year is the safety conscious users handbook, which is focused on safety conscious users, primarily drivers of vehicles. And they need to have different clarifications for what they do. So that's what Gerald, who's the director of transportation senior services, is taking our original employee handbook and drafting, adding in pieces from PACE's requirements, from DOT's requirements, to make sure that we're creating a safety conscious users handbook. So that's the piece that we're at. Where we're doing is each of the different directors and our HR is going to have a input onto the employee manual, all of these different manuals, and then it'll go to our attorney to make sure, and to the trustees to make sure that everybody has input. So this has already been underway for a few weeks that we've been working on this. Any input or questions from the trustees?
When does it expect to have a redrafting?
Ideally, I mean, it took us last time 4 months. So I hope in February. It's probably likely more in March. And we'll give you some drafts as soon as we get to a draft format. Okay. Then the accountant's report.
Stalled you, huh?
I waited so long.
Sorry.
Is there anybody else?
Okay, for the last month, we've continued to work on the amended budget for 22-23. We've met with John to go over some things. We've looked at what's been happening all the way through the current information that we have, so that on the amended budget for 22-23, that when it comes at the end of the month, we feel very confident that we have the figures that are going to be needed for the remainder of the year. We've also been working on the 23-24 budget extensively, and again, we've had meetings with John and Diane to go over the analysis of what we figure some of the expenses are going to be, especially for new programs. We've definitely taken a hard look at some of the things that we've done in the past and things that are coming in the future, and what resources will be needed for that. We've done analysis of the Albertson statement, Jewel, because of the fact that there were statement balances that were being carried forward every month for quite a period of time. We had started our discussion with Laura, and then she retired. So now we've been working with Michelle. We're trying to make sure that there's checks and balances in place so that when these vouchers are coming back, they're matched to the statement. So we know that there's not some vouchers missing. If there are, then we can get a hold of the representative from Albertsons immediately. One of the problems is that even though the statement is as of the end of the month, they're not getting it to us in the mail for 2 to 3 weeks. And so what's happening with that is, and then the fact that we pay once a month and everything, it starts to get that accumulation of that larger balance. So what we did is we went back to all the records that were in the general administration office with Laura, made sure that there was no impropriety, that everything did have vouchers associated with it, match things up. We did bring the bill current up to the point so that we knew it was correct. And now what we're doing is we're making sure Michelle gets it to us immediately when she gets it in the mail. And we're looking at it and getting it paid right away so that we're cutting down on that catch up all the time on that bill. We also did an analysis of the utility bills. Some of the utility bills are on auto pay. Some are not on auto pay. The ones not on auto pay a lot of times are being paid late because of the fact that, again, we pay the bills once a month. So we've been working to make sure, I've been working with Lisa to make sure that the auto pays are correct and that we're being set up for the other utilities so that every Verizon is on auto pay, not half of them, you know, making sure Comcast, Village of Lisle, ComEd, all of them are going to be on the schedule so that we know that we're not falling behind on any of the bills with that. We've requested the beginning balances for vacation, sick, and personal time from Diane, John, and Ed, so that we can now put those into QuickBooks. So that way, when the employee gets their paycheck, they're going to be able to see what their balance is of vacation, personal time, sick time. This also helps us because there's never been accruals previously for the liability to the township associated with especially sick time. You know, the policies that we've been looking at, obviously a small amount of personal time, a small amount of, well, not a small amount, but people use the vacation time. The sick time is what's been carrying over. So we really need to have an accrual. And
Why?
Because that's a liability of the township.
We're in cash basis.
I know, but we still need to know what we're at risk for.
Why?
Because it helps with planning. If you know that somebody's going to retire and get paid out on $50,000 of sick time, I would think that would be beneficial to know.
Wow. Could be, but I don't think anybody, I don't know how the township, but certainly the road district doesn't have anybody be able to accumulate anything like that. It shouldn't be that.
I have from Diane and I have from John. I don't have from you, so I can't speak to that. We're also working on setting up all the employees on Workforce through Intuit so that the employees will be able to get their pay stubs. One of the things now is all the pay stubs are printed every pay period and given to the department heads. The problem is that is a risk for employees to have identity theft, because if somebody throws it in the garbage or it gets lost or whatever, there's a lot of security issues with printing pay stubs. So Workforce allows the employee to get their pay stub on a secure portal. What it also allows is they always have it. So if they're going to rent somewhere and the landlord is asking for the last 3 pay stubs, they can electronically give it to the landlord. So we're looking at the Workforce for that. It also does allow them the W-2s to be sent electronically to employees. We obtained information from the insurance broker so that the new premiums are accurately reflected on the next paychecks. Their policy period starts December 1st. That's when the open enrollment was. So now we do have all the information about how much more the premiums will be. We also did analysis of the MetLife, which is the life insurance, dental, vision, accidental dismemberment, and the Blue Cross Blue Shield accounts, because they also were coming with beginning balances, and we're not exactly sure why. We worked with Assured Partners to make sure that we are brought up and paid current on all the insurance bills with MetLife and Blue Cross Blue Shield. We also had a Fifth Third Bank account, and the account was basically set up to be the pass-through for credit cards that were used. And what we found eventually is that there were 5 credit cards associated with this account, and some of the recurring charges for white page ads and different things like that were flowing through on these credit cards, and these credit cards just seemed to go forever. So we were getting all the copies of it, and we're trying to backtrack where these charges are coming from and find out if they're still valid charges or not. If they are, we would like to have it where only 2 cards remain open, which would be John and Diane, and have it where then those recurring charges would be there if they decide that that would be the place for them to be.
I think you mentioned that last time, there was credit card charges outstanding. How much were they?
No, the thing is, that was last time. That was not Fifth Third. That was credit cards that were associated. There was an MB Financial and another one. that was listed to William Green, and that was a separate issue. When I started going through the Fifth Third bank account, all of a sudden I started seeing payments for credit cards. So that's when we went back, and Lisa and Diane have been calling to get the information.
On the Green account, were there any charges on that? I mean,
On the
last
MB
time I thought I
Financial?
remembered you saying that there was some outstanding charges for the last 2 months or something like that on one of the credit cards. And there was some concern whether they were legitimate charges.
Yeah,
Have you
we,
come across anything that has not been a legitimate township charge?
not at this point in time. But we're still analyzing it to see, you know, what was going through these accounts. It's not material. But I just don't like seeing 5 credit cards. And that's all I have.
I got a couple.
Sure.
Just to clean up the record, are you a certified public accountant?
I am not.
Are you licensed to practice accounting by the state of Illinois?
If you want to play games, Ed, I'm an enrolled
I
PFU.
want to get the records.
No, I am not a certified public accountant because I don't do auditing. Okay? I'm a certified fraud examiner.
I would like to just interject here as we're all have questions, and I think we still need to retain professional decorum at all times, particularly staff.
I think the record will reflect that some of the things that you were reflected in the records as a CPA. That is not true. Right?
I did not say I was a CPA at any
I'm
time.
saying that it was reflected in the records that you were. I just trying to correct the record.
I am not. I have never claimed to be. I have a list of credentials. I'm a certified fraud examiner. I'm an enrolled agent. I'm licensed to practice by the United States Treasury in all 54 jurisdictions of the United States.
Those are wonderful credentials.
I know.
And I'm not criticizing your credentials or your experience or anything like that. I'm just trying to correct the record.
That's why I never said I was. I never had.
It's in the record that you were.
Okay. Then please correct it, because I am not, and I never said that I was.
Okay. How long do you think it will be, well, reasonably speaking, that you'll get some clarification on these open credit cards, or what the activities on these cards? Because that should, I mean, in my mind, it seems like that should be something we should be able to clear up pretty quickly, because that's kind of concerning that we still have that open. Any idea on what the expectation should be for that to be completed?
Well, it's not that it's open. It was a different matter at the last board meeting that was open. There's multiple credit cards. This is only the credit cards that are being through Fifth Third. We also had credit cards through MB Financial, and okay, that's what and Lisa were trying to get information on from the last meeting.
Okay. And that's still open though?
Those have been taken care of. They did get the bank statements for that.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Allocated. What happened was it was put in as just say $1,193. And then the description said to be allocated later. So now with the statements, we went in and we allocated it appropriately to the classification that it belonged to.
Thank you.
Is there some reason we don't have budget versus actual statements?
You do.
Really?
Yeah, Michelle put it in there.
I didn't see them. And now we're posted on the web.
We have a profit loss budget versus actual.
Was it posted?
It wasn't, no financials were posted.
They're on the website. That's where I'm looking.
Not on the board packet.
No, because they weren't part of this meeting. That's why there's a special meeting on Saturday.
The audit versus
Right?
the budget
Or
is part of the
I'm
special meeting.
thinking about something else.
Well, that's a
Right.
part of it. That's the part of the special meeting on Saturday.
We've been processing checks now for rent assistance that aren't charged to Fund 20. Are you aware of that?
No, everything has been to Fund 20 for rent.
That's not what it shows. I'll be glad to talk with you tomorrow. But there's been
I'll have to talk to Lisa. She's been putting those in.
okay.
Okay.
Definitely. And we seem to have cut a check earlier in the month to Conager and Gallagher without the trustees approving. Is that true?
And I'm cringing because I felt my signature was an
And you signed the check?
attestation. I did sign the check as an
So
attestation, but
was
now
that
I'm,
approved by the trustee?
Which Connor and Gallagher check,
I
there's
think it said
quite a
for
few.
human resources.
So
about $4,000,
Oh, 4,400?
something like that.
We have not been putting anything in without signatures from either John or you or Diane.
Let me make sure I understand this, that you don't put it into QuickBooks until the check has been signed? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, no. What we do is when we get an invoice
Yeah.
and it says on there that it's signed by you or John or Diane, then we put it in the system
And then you got to check.
if it's close to the board meeting. Like if we get an invoice from somebody 2 weeks before the board meeting, it goes in QuickBooks, but the check doesn't get generated at that point.
But she signed the check, so I guess I'm confused. What was that?
I could tell you what day, because she asked me to come in if you wanted.
So I don't have that documentation right in front of me.
12/27, it says sign insurance checks.
And that was the day of the meeting.
So was it not in the audit of expenditures?
I'm not sure that was it.
Well, the meeting on the 27th, I thought was just for the approval of the budget.
That was, there. Again, we had adopted the agreement that we were going to have Connor and Gallagher for our HR services. And that had been an ongoing agreement that we've been using. So when it came to signing that check, it was in the budget, it was agreed to. So I did sign that check.
It was 12/28.
So,
Wednesday.
so you're suggesting that you can take things and cut checks because it's in the budget?
And there's a contract
And there's a contract.
that was approved by the
It
board.
doesn't have to go with the trustee.
Well, it already went to the trustees if they approved the contract. I mean,
So
I'm
then
happy
the
to take a look at
healthcare
this.
insurance, since they signed the contract here, that payment to Blue Cross each month doesn't have to come to trustee.
Yeah, I was
It's-
under the impression we were signing things that were cut other than the online invoices.
So part of this is, I'm pretty
Part
sure
of this is the purchasing policy.
that needs to be in place that we've been working on, because there is some questions of some of this, but we are creating that policy and we're only paying and doing what we have contracts to do. Any other accounting questions?
Is this our time to go through this? Are we talking about this later or what?
What is
Is
this?
this, I'm sorry, it's the budget and appropriation and the profit and loss and the budget versus actual. I mean, I don't know if this is here to discuss or not. I know there's been changes since the last time for the amended budgets.
The amended budget for 22-23 is noticed to be heard at the end of the month on the 30th. So up until that point, because it hasn't been adopted yet. So once we have the hearing, then it will be adopted after the hearing, so that, you know, changes can be made up until that point. I think this was an FYI, so you could see the changes.
Okay, do you want to highlight any of the changes for the amended budget compared to what the amended budget was the last time they viewed it?
So what we did was we added another column to make sure that any differences could be annotated. And so each of the three, there's different columns to understand the differences of where we were and where we're going with our budgeting.
And that was at the request of one of the trustees last time.
Does this reflect what's in the profit and loss? Is that the original budget, the amended budget?
No, it's the original budget. It was never changed.
This was never changed? I think.
I never changed it. I was told it was the original budget. So we did not, because until it was voted on, I really couldn't make any adjustments to the budget.
The original budget was approved back in
March. Yes.
And the numbers in here don't reflect that. They've been changed.
Then
So
that
I
would
think
have
it's
been
confusing.
William
I'm not
Green
sure
that
which
did
budget.
that.
Pardon me?
That would have been William Green then that did that.
Well, I don't know.
Well, I can look at the
That's
audit
another
trail.
thing I wanted to ask you too. I'm glad you brought that up. In QuickBooks, there's an identity to associate with every transaction, right?
Yeah.
And people want that for the audit trail.
Correct.
Right? Good practice. We don't appear to have that. Do we? Everything I see that gets entered into QuickBooks is entered by admin. It's not by you, it's not by Diane.
We have been working on it. The problem is the license is under William Green. And we have already spent 4 hours with QuickBooks trying to get that changed. And QuickBooks is very difficult to deal when someone is not there to change their name. So we are escalating it. Lisa's following up on it, and we're trying to do that. But right now we have no ability to change that because QuickBooks won't allow it.
I think I would have made that my number one.
Well, if you'd like to sit on the phone of QuickBooks, I'll be happy to give you the number.
Well, even if it required getting a new license, I would do that.
The problem is then trying to switch the license to existing information does not just happen.
Is having an audit trail best practices?
We do have an audit trail. Lisa's the only one entering. Who else is, are you entering?
I don't have the authority.
Okay. John, do you enter?
I've seen Diane enter.
Do you have the ability to enter on QuickBooks?
I have a different password and I haven't entered anything on QuickBooks.
Well, if she has a different password, then she would be on the audit trail.
She said she didn't enter, but I think if you go out and look, there's some.
But if she did have her own name associated.
You're not
with
entering
it,
anything in the QuickBooks.
I hope Lisa is with me every time we work together on everything. I have never worked alone on anything.
Between you and Lisa.
Well, if you have your own sign in, then the audit trail would be under you and under Lisa.
Right. And
Right.
if you're entering things under Lisa's sign on, what's the other?
Well, because Lisa is sitting with me and I am working with her to teach her and to get her to enter things. So I personally in 32 years have never been at a cleanup of any client and had my own sign in. I've always worked with the people there. I'm not doing it on my own. I'm not coming here and just doing things without supervision. I'm in an education mode with Lisa.
You have your own sign in QuickBooks.
Pardon?
Can you sign in QuickBooks by yourself?
For Lisa? No.
For you.
For
Can
me?
you go in there now and sign in QuickBooks?
If Lisa is there, she hands me the sheet, so the sheet logs on. And then we're logged on during the day.
What do you anticipate this learning curve to be complete?
Well, right now we've been working with the budget so much that the last couple of weeks have not been spent a lot on training because we just haven't had the time.
Yeah, no, I understand, but I'm just from a fiscally responsible perspective, because obviously the last person who was in this role didn't have the learning curve that we're experiencing now. And there is always going to be a cost associated with change, when you don't have retention. But I'm just trying to gauge like what we can expect from a cost perspective, this to, how much longer this would be continuing.
I mean, I can't answer that question, honestly.
Okay, that's fair.
I mean,
I think we just need to be cognizant of it.
No, I am very cognizant of it. And all the clients I deal with have budgets and they're under constraints to get things done in a certain period of time. It is trying to get caught up on what wasn't caught up for a period of time, and then try to figure out some of these things that don't make sense. that are not consistent. And it's been going down a lot more rabbit holes than I had ever hoped to go down, to be honest.
Ready for it? Okay, any other questions? Okay, any old business? Any new business? And reports of elected officials. Highway Commissioner Young.
No snow is a good thing.
My son disagrees. He's eagerly awaiting that.
Four Lakes is looking for snow. And then Assessor Trowbridge.
No report, thank you.
Trustee Robinson.
No, no.
And Trustee McGovern.
Tutoring Tuesday is this coming Tuesday, the 17th. It's the first and third Tuesday of the month. Held at Lisle Park District, door 5, from 5 to 6 p.m. An RSVP is required to attend. It's one-to-one tutoring. So subject matter in which assistance is needed is also required. And there is a link on the website, or you can call the supervisor's office or contact me, which is on flyers that are on.
Thank you, Trustee McGovern. Trustee Page.
No report.
And Trustee Geis.
No report.
Thank you. Then
I do have a report. A couple months ago, you said that you would be moving my office to be with the food pantry, with to share it in a very unsecured area and not private at all. And the other day, I think last Thursday, you said pretty loudly in front of everyone that it will be moved in the next couple of days. And it hasn't been moved yet, but you know, I put a note on the door, on the desk, and I told you, do not move the records. You know, it is my job as clerk to be custodian of the records. And I take that seriously. And that means that they need to be secure, and I need to be in a private area. When I'm doing, especially like minutes for closed session, I need to listen to them, and I cannot be in another office with somebody else who is able to have other people in the office with or without me in there. With that, at the meeting, the trustees also tended to agree to say that I should have my own room and I should be with the records. And again, I take this extremely seriously, that I've asked for a lock on the door, which I do not have. The file cabinets are not, most of them are not able to be locked properly. And so it's all pretty non-functioning. So either tomorrow or the next day, I will be moving all the records as custodian of the records to a very safe and secure location. And that would be all the records. That also means all the finances, all the financial records, and all the records of the township. So I just wanted to let you know that.
Okay. All right. I'm confused, Diane. I thought that we all of the trustees spoke pretty strongly on this, that we felt that those that the clerks, the documentation that the clerk is responsible for needed to be in a locked, secure room and not in a shared space. So what happened from that conversation? We had such an at-length conversation. I'm just so confused. We spent all this time having conversations, and yet things are done that are not in the best interest. And this is not about who has control over who has final say. We all know you have final say, Diane, but we have a duty to our constituents to make sure that the things that are happening in that office are in the best interest of our taxpayers, our voters, our constituents. And records should be secure. There needs to be some integrity, some privacy, some trust, that there's no question about the access of that data. My head is like, I'm like, what just happened?
And so in each of the different rooms or in each of the different offices, there's at least 5 different places where one can lock up files. In the food pantry director's office, which was previously the former clerk's and the food pantry's office. So they had a shared office, which is why there's 2 labels on the door, because they had a shared office. And after discussing this with our attorney, who said that frankly, there's townships without buildings. And so what we require as a township is to have a place where documents can be secured.
You suggested.
Wait. Well, I appreciate what our attorney says, but the attorney is not an elected official. The attorney has no accountability to the constituents, the taxpayers of Lisle Township. So I appreciate that you defer to her, but she does not speak for us and our duty as elected officials. Okay, so I'm glad that you deferred to her. We made it very clear that we were each uncomfortable with that decision. And I feel very disrespected, to be honest with you. You know, if I'm being entrusted with with the voters to act in their best interest, and I expressed to you and other trustees expressed to you that we did not feel that the clerk should be working and having data stored in the same space as the food pantry. I'm just confused, and I don't want to hear what Jordana said. I'm confused as to why you made that choice.
And okay, so as we've been speaking, we're running out of space. And we have unmet needs when it comes to general assistance. They're generally in the months of behind in unmet needs. And so when we realize that we
are you telling me that we are not meeting the needs of our community when it comes to general assistance because Debbie's office is being occupied? Because Clerk Polowitz's office is being occupied, but the 6 and 8 months that our community has gone without a counselor, without, like what? I'm so confused right now.
Okay, and so to clarify this, we have in our reports of staff, there's a report of how many calls get made into the township. Okay, and so there's a lovely graph that shows partially the unmet need that has been documented in the last month of, for example, LIHEAP. And so the piece that we have been primarily behind on is general assistance.
That unmet need of general assistance, because it was not a priority to get staff replaced after staff resigned, but other things were made a priority. That is why. Let's not put this on office space. Let's be completely honest about this. That is not why we're having our constituents, we're not having needs met. If someone came into that office in crisis, in all the months that we did not have a counselor on staff, we were not performing our duty that we have been championed to perform. So that has nothing to do with office space. That has to do with not being properly staffed because it wasn't made a priority.
Was a priority, and actually when you hear some of the reports that we have, it's actually very difficult to find enough counselors. This is a national issue of having a shortage of counselors.
Well, that's why retention is key, Diane. That's why we have to make sure, that's why in any company, in any organization, retention is key, and that we have to be doing our due diligence to make sure that, we're doing our best to retain the best and the brightest and the most experienced. I mean, that's not even a topic for conversation. I just don't understand why we would be putting the clerk in the food pantry office. She is an elected official. She is chartered to manage sensitive data. And we all spoke very firmly about this in the last meeting that we'd not agree with it. I'm just so confused. And the reasons that you gave last month and the month before when this came up, I thought it came up twice, maybe I'm wrong, are the same you're giving now. No, but that doesn't change the fact that we all felt very strongly about this not being the best choice. So I'm confused as to why we move forward with it. I mean, I guess it's a moot point at this point because it sounds like Debbie's made other accommodations, but how unfortunate that that's where we're at. Okay. I yield.
Again, we have a need to meet that we do not have the ability to meet with our current facilities. We're out of space and we're out of office room. And again, this has been done before by other administrations and other boards. There is nothing other than the lack of space and the need to have services in order to sustain the need of our township.
Well, there's right here in the district that you are in the township that you chose not to go forth with. Like I said, I've asked for it to be locked. It's not locked. I don't even have all the contracts that I've been asking you for. So there's going to be even more documents that are supposed to be in the office that are not going to be able to be in the food pantry office, which then if I am working on something, what does that mean? If I get up to get a cup of coffee, I have to lock everything up for fears that someone will walk in. This is not a secure location. So with that, I do not feel they're secure now. I do not feel they're secure in the food pantry. So I've obtained other area for them to be at. I will be moving them and then I will submit the bill.
Where are you moving them?
They'll be on township property.
Okay, we need to take a look at the Open Meetings Act because I think there's limitations on where closed session minutes can go. So I just want to make sure that we're not violating that.
By talking about me, this is public elected official. I'm saying that I'm moving. I'm telling you. I probably didn't even need to say it, but I am informing you that I'm taking all the records, financials as well.
But I'm telling you that the Open Meetings Act requires closed session minutes to be stored at the government's. I have to look and see if
Okay.
government property is broad enough or if it needs to be their main office. Because I know there's limitations on where closed session minutes can go.
I didn't start this. I didn't start this. I'm just taking my job to the point that it needs to be because nobody else is.
So when
I wouldn't say that. I think I'm taking your role very seriously. I am speaking up for the seriousness of what you've been entrusted. I would like to not be the only one speaking up. It seems I'm always the one speaking about things that don't feel right. I'm going to continue to speak up and out for things when I believe it's what's right. And I don't think what we're doing is right. And if we're really concerned about the records being stored somewhere else, then we should have made a different accommodation. I'm really, I don't know. Diane, why don't you and Lisa just share an office?
I actually am sharing an office with an executive assistant. So
with an executive assistant and another assistant. And I mean, how many, this is why we have space issues. I mean, in the previous administration, they didn't seem to have all of these space issues. So I guess maybe we need to look at, I don't know. So like Debbie, I guess you have to do what you have to do. I apologize that we didn't do a better job of making sure that we were honoring and respecting the role that you have, and that's that.
Okay, and so again, to remind everybody, there are 5 different places where the clerk can lock things up. One of the pieces that we have realized in our township, and a piece that the first thing that the executive assistant that I hired was doing was labeling and making a log of every single lock in this building. So if you look at that door, if you look at every single door, there's a label of the number of that lock. And the reason why we had to do that was because when I came into this job, there wasn't a clearly defined key and label and definition of any of the locks in this building. Mm-hmm. And so that is one of the things that we are making sure everybody has is complete understanding of what is able to be secured and the ability to secure it. Good. I wish that when I had that had been done prior, but we're making sure that the ability to lock everything up is being secured. We've also installed a firewall. We've installed a whole lot of internal controls that would allow for our technology to be served. we have done as much as we could possibly do to ensure the integrity and security of this building.
Except for
I think that, yeah,
There was no, again, to be completely clear, there hasn't been anything where there was a documented locking understanding of anything in this building.
Has anybody used the clerk's office since the meeting where we asked for that space to be a safe space, secure?
That was not voted on. That was not on the agenda to be voted on. So I'm pretty sure there was never a vote by the trustee.
That's not the question I asked. I said, has that space been used by other people? Has the space been unsecure at any time since the last meeting?
Okay, and again, reminding you that there's 5 different drawers and cabinets that
I just want the answer to the question. Has that room remained secure?
That room has always been used by the general assistance director in particular, because there is a lot of need that we have in this township to have room use. We're literally out of space.
So the public is meeting in that room?
The director of general assistance, who is an employee, occasionally has need to use that room.
But she is not the clerk. In fact, you're not supposed to have a key to my file cabinets. I'm the custodian of the records.
Oh boy.
I have never gone into your file cabinets.
Well, and I'm not suggesting you have, but I did say to you at the December 27th meeting of the levy that we actually, I know some were here, that we went to go get what was filed last year for the road district, and it was not in my file. So it does not make sense that that would not be in the file. So I am not pointing fingers because I have no idea, because I walk in and the door's wide open when I'm like, lock the door. You know, I don't have enough file cabinets for everything that's in there. Yeah, you know, the bottom line though is I cannot move to the food pantry. The documents are not secure. There's not enough privacy to be doing the work that needs to be done by a clerk. So I will be moving.
Okay. Any other staff reports?
So I know that it's late and this seems to happen a lot, so I apologize. Report wise, I wanted to briefly talk about the purchasing policy, just let you know that that's in effect and that we are looking at the attestation stuff. That we can table that for another meeting. You know, I know that I sent you a schedule about what I hope to accomplish in a very short period of time. And some of it we've accomplished and some of it not. So I will, you know, keep you informed as best I can about, you know, when I think things can be, you know, out to you, because I know that it's important for you guys to be able to. Sorry, Autumn, I keep turning this way because everyone in the room's this way, but I don't mean to ignore you. I'm trying to get things out in a timely manner. There's just a lot of moving parts there. So I appreciate your patience. You know, we'll do the you know, the next couple special meetings, and then at the regular meeting next time I'll have things to you before we can advance. And that's what I have to say now.
Thank you, Jordana Wysocki.
Will we know when the agenda is posted? Because I know
so I understand that's been I'm fine with sending you. I mean, I don't want to.
Because usually I got an email. This time I didn't. I just want to make sure it is kind of standard, you know, that it's email or we refer to the website, and at what point in time will it be posted?
Good job for executive assistant.
So at the last meeting, I showed everybody, and this was posted at before the last meeting. So if you go under documents and under board meetings and then all of them are going to be there. So that's, I frankly, when
I know, but
everybody
who's
was
over
here,
the schedule again? So that will be posted and the packet and the agenda will be complete by
a week
Friday?
prior. And so that's what, last week on Wednesday, I showed everybody that that was already posted. So that's why I just thought
all the
everybody
documentation is in it. Okay.
knew that after showing everyone the that it was already done at that time. The other pieces that are going on from a transportation perspective, we're making sure that Ride DuPage passports and all of our vehicles, there were not any written procedures for these programs, and we're making sure that there's standard operating procedures for our programs in transportation in particular. In the food camp, in casework, we had 27 cases with 21,236 assistance given. The primary amount was given 16,000 in rent assistance. When you look at the caseworker calls, she's at 244 and she's doing a fabulous job. In the food pantry, we increased the storage capacity by 25% by changing the settings of the shelves. We served 3,019 people with a few holidays in there. That was a really big number. A lot of people got Christmas hams and turkeys. From a township report of our where our Ride DuPage program is, this is the amounts that we're spending and for the fare and the distance traveled for these. This is becoming more transparent in its our understanding of how to track this. Michelle Jasmer, it has a master's in social work, has a bachelor's of science specializing in aquatics. But she's focused on going to be helping us develop our many programs. Our monthly summary in the office shows where our front desk calls are coming from and the need of what we're having in the need of trying to provide services, especially regarding transportation and senior services.
What are the blank ones on there?
That means nothing happened.
Well, there's a call.
There's a call that came in, but it's not allocated to.
Okay, that it must be when they shrunk that there's two pieces that are missing right here. When it became a PDF, it may I can send everybody a rehash, but there's two pieces right here, two columns that must have gotten cut off. The report from the operations manager, sexual harassment training has been completed. They're working on updating the increases in benefit cost and organizing the file system in a more in an easier way, and creating ongoing development and standard operating practices for each department with passports, FOIA, employees time off, and I use strategic planning questionnaires in the final process and the emergency assistance procedures and final approval process as well. There are 5 employees now trained trained on passports. We're doing ongoing cross training of employees on emergency assistance, general assistance, LIHEAP, and benefit access. Whereas before we didn't have that. Budgeting expansion of services, training new staff, and creating and revising standard operating procedures have been the main topics amongst the employees this past month. We're increasing our revenue substantially in LIHEAP, passports, and transportation, and preparing to make the process more efficient. In late December, Linda, Lisa, and I met with a group from DuPage County to be sure that we're on track for the significant ARPA grant. We did receive $25,000 from them in a new grant for the food pantry specifically. We hired Michelle Jasmer as my executive assistant and Joanna Vasquez-Dressler as our part-time general assistance caseworker.
Executive assistant. Oh, they began. And where did they come from? What was their background?
So Michelle Jasmer has a master's in social work, and Joanna Vasquez Drexler was a school counselor with a master's in social work again.
So Michelle has been an executive assistant in the past?
She's had a variety of different jobs in the past. I don't have her resume memorized off the top of my head.
Do we have access to it?
Sure.
I missed the last one. What's the new role for not Michelle, the one after that?
Is a part-time general assistance caseworker.
Part-time general assistance caseworker. Who we have, and you're hiring another one?
So we have unmet need that we have never been able to meet.
I understand.
Which
So
means
there'll be
that
2.5 people for general assistance.
no,
Okay.
there's 1.5 persons for general assistance.
Okay, so you're not hiring another full-time person?
No,
Okay, because I thought
Not
that
for
was
general
going in
assistance.
my office.
that's the director of senior services.
I thought that was Gerald Wood.
He's changing his title. He's going to be the director of transportation.
So we're hiring another person.
Yes, yeah. We're continuing to expand our networking with the community. The Lisle Intergovernmental Meeting was very inspiring. The Lisle Woodridge Fire Department is one of 90 in the country that is Class 1 designation, which has been a huge honor for them to keep. They have a survey instrument that will help give feedback after services are rendered. There are 4 vacancies they are trying to fill. They did have a memorial for Jack Kelly. The village is doing amazing work on the storm levee in Lisle. They created a partnership with the Army Corps of Engineers and plan to make well-needed repairs. They're working on expanding commuter parking and many residential and commercial developments. The library should be done with renovations in the spring. District 202 is doing amazing things with their Vision 203, their facilities, cyber technology. Pete Myers was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. The Park District is finishing up their 10-year plan, and pickleball has become super, super popular lately. So they're trying to meet the needs of the pickleballers. And Naperville is planning to do a intergovernmental meeting in February, which we're looking forward to doing, which hasn't happened since the pandemic. The North Shore Edwards Elmhurst grant has been truly inspirational. The awardees have been encouraged to network in some very helpful ways. So that was the food, that was my report.
I have some questions. You kind of breezed through this because I thought we met the director of transportation and that the director of senior services were hired and that was all right. I thought we met them both and we were ready to go. What happened? And wait, so what role do we have? So someone went from transportation to services or services? That all happened too fast for me. Sorry, guys.
So the director of seniors, he is still the director of transportation and senior services. But when we're looking at our lack of senior services, we realized that we needed to hire somebody that's going to be focused on the seniors' needs.
But I thought we did hire someone to do for director of senior services.
So when we were looking at the work that he was being asked to do, and the work that is going to be required to expand our transportation program, it was not possible for one person to do what we were asking him to do. And when you look at, frankly, at other townships.
No, I'm not, wait, I'm not saying that. No, sorry, I didn't ask the question correctly. I apologize. I don't want you to go into am I the only person who's recalling this? I thought we hired someone for senior services and for transportation. I thought we had 2 separate people started.
No, there has never been 2 people. His name is Gerald Wolf. He came to the November meeting. And
when he came to the November meeting, what role was he filling?
His original title when we originally hired him was the director of senior service, transportation and senior.
Okay, so in that meeting, this is where I misunderstood then, because I thought in that meeting he was just director of transportation.
And we're realizing that the director of transportation is a big role in itself, which is requiring a lot of time. And so if we were to look to have senior services, and especially when we look at comparable townships and you look at the staffing of a comparable township, with the demographics that are ours, we're very small. When you look at a comparable township, if you look at Wayne Township, at Hanover Township, from a perspective.
I'm not questioning the need. I'm still confused. I thought when we met him in that meeting, and I guess I'd have to go back to the meeting minutes, he was introduced as the director of transportation, not the director of senior services and transportation, such that now we have to split his role and hire another person. So that's what I was asking for clarification on. So hopefully that makes more sense.
How much is the new person, director of senior services, going to make annually?
It's a range, they haven't been hired. So when we put it out for a range, and it's indeed 50,000 to 60,000 was the range that we anticipated.
So right now we don't have the space for the seniors. Is there any way we can like comp park district senior activity passes or something like that? Because that seems like a lot of spending and we don't have a place to hold the events.
So the good thing is that we're planning to have a place soon, and we're
so that's going to be 100.
So in between there's a whole lot of areas of improvement that we could and we need to improve on for the seniors. That doesn't need a facility to do so. We currently are missing programming, and when we visited the other townships and we realized that, for example, there's sometimes whole buildings like in Hanover Township, they have a whole building focused on senior citizens' needs. Do you recall being there?
I do, but we don't have that space. So I'm a little concerned about
right. But you have to first start with somebody that's going to create a program. And in order to develop,
I don't know that it needs to be 2 years out though.
Of course, I just feel like it might be extra spending that we should maybe look at as a board.
The other part you have to look at is, do some of these other townships have other services that take care of the seniors? So here we have both Lisle Park District and we have Naperville Park District. There's very few people that have come to learn that are not covered by either one. Wouldn't our dollars be better spent at giving them stipends to be able to be part of the Lisle Park District or the Naperville Park District? That would cost us a whole lot less, that have really dynamic programs.
So as we're going through budgeting, we can keep going through that. But again, as we're looking at our lack of programming and the calls that we get on a daily basis for senior services, we just had a conversation with the Village of Lisle, and they were wanting to see what they could do because they were getting a lot of calls with people that needed a variety of different senior needs services that we didn't have available in the community. So there is a lot of needs that we haven't even started to address because we don't have the ability to do so without the manpower.
Well, I think that addressing the seniors' needs is definitely a priority. I don't think that that's the question. I think referring back to Trustee McGovern is it necessary to fill all of these positions now when construction is minimally 2 years out? We're not even factoring supply, material delays, weather, staff, manpower. Like, why would we pay for a salary this far out? I see what I do see value in what she's saying.
We won't have any programs internally if we don't have anybody to create them. And so we're going to, when we look and see about all the pass-throughs that we offer in our senior services, there's not enough there's a whole need. And again, this can be a part of our budgeting discussion. If you want to talk about other options, I don't know that we would have to work through a variety of different intergovernmental agreements in order for that type of a stipend to happen.
I just think we have space issues. We don't have the space to provide the facilities. It just seems like that's something we could pause on right now.
Anyone else have any thoughts about senior services?
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
I think we have as part of the budget discussion.
Well,
right? But I think there is a need that could be identified by reaching out to a lot of the seniors in the community, finding what the unfulfilled needs are. So maybe that's the first step.
Agreed. And years past, we had a senior services director here as an employee at the time before our administration, correct? And we also had a transportation director at the township before our administration. Was there?
I don't think we had both.
We didn't have both, but
for certain we had a senior service.
Yes.
Okay. That's all I have.
Yeah, there's no question. You're correct, Trustee Page, that there was, but there wasn't both. And it just seems that if at this time we do not have the facilities, that person could fulfill both roles until we are closer to having a target date of having an open living facility to be utilizing to provide services to seniors.
So if
it's just being fiscally prudent.
I totally agree. But again, if we want to be ready to move into the building and have programs when we move in and not just be 2 years out on the startup because we didn't hire early enough, then that's another discussion. So if we want to,
I just don't think it will take 2 years to create programs.
It's a lot longer than you would think, I think. Okay, any other questions on that? Okay, then, does anybody want to make a motion to move to the executive session?
I'll make a motion to move to executive session.
I'll second.
Thank you, Trustee Page and Trustee McGovern. And then any discussion?
Well, I just want to make it, the motion needs to say why. Yeah, no, that's fine. It's pursuant to section 2C21 of the Open Meetings Act. It's for the purpose of reviewing the minutes of meetings lawfully closed under the act. So
there's a first
with that
first from Trustee Page, second from Trustee McGovern.
Second, what?
Already second. You already say you're okay with the amendment of why we're going.
Yes,
okay.
I know why we're going.
All right. So you have a motion and a second. You need a roll call.
Okay, and a roll call.
Trustee Geis.
Yes.
McGovern.
Yes.
Trustee Page.
Yes.
Trustee Robinson.
Yes.
Supervisor Hewitt.
Yes.
Okay. Let's take a break.
Take a bio break.